Okay, first of all, I want to thank you all for watching this video. My name is Wolfie from Two Ton Studios. This is going to be a quick little tutorial on how I do rocky bases. This right here just happens to be one of them that I've done previously. Um, Nothing super fancy here, just a little bit of green stuff smashed out onto a base. I've had a lot of people ask me how I do it, so I figured I might as well show you. So, just for the sake of size and scale here, I'm going to use another one of my 50 millimeter round lip bases that I have hijacked from one of my cut-on war jacks from War Machine. Just a simple round lip base, nothing super fancy. I do like these bases a lot because they kind of give you a defined circle on the inside edge here for what exactly you've got to work in. Plus that rounded edge makes it look a little bit classier on the outside, unlike some of the other game manufacturers out there. So start off, I just got some green stuff here that I've mashed out, mixed together, and got using a roughly about a 50-50 mix. I use the green stuff from the tube rather than the ribbon. I don't like the ribbon. That's me. You might be different. I don't like the ribbon because where the two halves come together, it gets dried out where it's cured, and I always have to trim that out because I don't usually use green stuff fast enough to make it worthwhile. I think it's a bit of a waste, so I'll stick to buying it in the tubes. But like I said, that's me. You might be different. So we're going to start off here just by taking the little blob of green stuff that I got mixed in, just mashing it down onto the base. Kind of just push it out towards the edges a little bit here. I'm wearing gloves. The nice thing about wearing gloves and working with green stuff is you don't get the fingerprints as bad in your green stuff. So just a little bit of a, like an FYI kind of thing there. You will get some, but just, it's real easy to smooth those fingerprints right back out. This is going to be a rough texture, so it's not going to make much difference anyway. But if you're just one of those people that's kind of picky about, seeing fingerprints and what they're doing, this is a good way to keep fingerprints from being a big problem. I do want a little bit of a ridge on this base, kind of like what I did with this one here, just not as much to one side, or actually more to one side than the other. So just kind of shaping it here a little bit, getting a rough idea of what I want. Now, to get the texture on the bases that I do, it's actually real simple. I just take, I use slate because I like the texture of the slate, and how, when slate breaks, you get these nice, sharp edges. Just grab a few pieces of rock. I got these from an old basing kit released several years back, and I've never used the slate on a base because, let's face it, I prefer to make my own rocks. I know nature has some pretty good examples of rocks out there, but I might as well try and see what I can come up with. That and this stuff isn't exactly easy to come by sometimes. So I just take the section of the rock that I like the best. This here happens to be one of the rocks that I use the most. So most of the texture you see on the rocky bases that I've made, it's made with this in particular rock. Kind of weird to say that I've got a favorite rock, but in a way I kind of do. Just like I said, just take the rough texture of the rock, and just kind of smash it down to the green stuff. Kind of like a random pattern. You're not trying to get anything, too organized looking here, and kind of switch rocks every now and then so you can change up the texture, change up the pattern of the texture. And here I'm just kind of work on that. You got the divide in the rocks here. And just I know there's a lot of resin-based manufacturers out there that make some really good rocky bases. I'm just kind of one of those where I don't want everybody on the same exact rock, or every two or three guys on the same rock. So I prefer to kind of get creative. I do make my own resin bases from time to time, but this is one of those things where I want it to look a little bit more natural and not so, hey, you've got five guys on the same base kind of thing. Because then it just looks too organized and not not as natural or not as realistic. Yeah, I know it's a fantasy, type setting, but I do like a little bit of realism in my games. That's why reason why I paint the way I do is I prefer a little bit of that realism. And then switch rocks again here. I think I'll use this one. I haven't used this one yet. Now, another thing I'll do every now and then is just take my sculpting tool. Whenever working with Greenstuff, make sure you have water on hand. Water will keep the metal tools from sticking to the Greenstuff so bad. You can see there have been a few times where I've gotten a little hasty and haven't used it, so I've got Greenstuff stuck to the blade of my sculpting tool. So a little bit of water here, and then we'll get back to work on this. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of adding a little bit of edge definition. Kind of mimic the slate a little bit with the breaks and the rock. Again, I don't want it looking, too symmetrical or too, manufactured, basically. I want to try and keep it looking somewhat natural. You can also use an X-Acto knife for this, but, you'll get a little bit thinner lines, which is okay. With this scale and the fact that, it's going to wind up being primed and then painted, I tend to want to over-exaggerate some of the details a little bit more than some of the others. And that's just, to kind of aid in the overall look of the rock and the base that I'm working on. So like I said, not much to it really. Just, mashing out some Greenstuff here and there. And like I said, I'm doing this because I've had a couple people tell me that, oh, I can't work with Greenstuff, or I don't know what I'm doing when I'm working with Greenstuff, so, here's some Greenstuff, here's the base, can you do it for me? I don't mind doing that for people. I love helping people out, hence the reason why I'm a commissioned painter. And you can check out all my stuff that I've painted here recently over at my site, which is 2tonstudios.blogspot.com. I've got a pretty good selection of painted miniatures that I've done for people in the past over there, so definitely come by and check out what I've got. But I'm doing this to show that anybody can do this. This is just one of those things that I kind of taught myself how to do it because I got tired of having just sand glued down to a base. I wanted to do something different, especially for kind of the theme of the armies that I'm playing and building now. But overall, that's a rock. When you go to paint it, and I know right now it doesn't look like much. A little bit of primer, a little bit of paint. Depending on how you want your rocks to look, whether you want them to be gray rocks or brown rocks or whatever, that's up to you. That's kind of the artistic side coming out in each person. But that's a rock. It'll probably wind up getting used in my Cato army, so you'll see it painted up shortly. So there's just a couple of rocky bases that I've thrown together this evening. I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of a taste of how I do it. Nothing fancy. Sometimes I'll leave the edges a little bit, leave the Greenstuff not quite pushed out to the edges so far. So that way I can get a little bit of ballast or sand. And I've got some of that here, just to kind of show you what I'll use. It's a real fine ballast. I prefer the brown, that way if some of it does chip off, it kind of still blends in with how I paint it. Because I always paint my sand kind of a brownish color anyway. And then I've also got some, very, very fine aquarium sand that I got from a friend of mine. This stuff is not exactly cheap, but at the same time, saying the fact that you have to buy it in like big 20-pound bags. Find somebody who has an aquarium, and when they go to set their aquarium up, if they decide they want to put new sand in their aquarium, see if you can hijack some from them, because you don't need a 20-pound bag. This much will last a long time. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave me a review of what you think. This being my first video, don't go too harsh on me, please. Thank you, and have a great night.